Welcome to the channel. My name is Jodie Knight. You can find me over on eToro. My live portfolio there is going to be linked in the description down below. But other than that, in this video, we're going to talk about the daily chart, the weekly chart, the short and long-term, long-dated options interest. We'll talk a little bit about my price targets, where I'm going to add, where I'm going to trim. As well as that, we'll look at the general market, what data came out, what data is coming out, and if there's any good Tesla news that we're interested in. Let's just jump straight into it. So just taking a quick look at the daily chart for Tesla here, we're back in the black trend line. Nothing too concerning really, we're just kind of grinding between the bull market band and the top of that. So we did have a bit of a false breakout there, but that was to be expected. Tesla does trade very volatile. I'm not going to day trade this one. It's not really worth the hassle for me. I'm pretty much at a size position that I'm happy with. Maybe I squeeze out another 1% or something to add to it, but for the most part, I like where I'm at. And I like where price is at. If it does drop lower, I probably will switch to buying again. And if it does pop, then I'm not really going to be taking profit until later 2025. I'm basing that more on timeline rather than price target because, as we all know, Musk's time targets can vary considerably. So I don't want to just stick to certain prices when I don't know what a lot of the products are going to be doing yet. We've got a lot coming in 2025. Energy's expanding, semi's coming. We've got the robo taxi and all that good stuff. So hit my hat there. So I don't want to be guessing at prices and kind of just making stuff in my models, just making it fit. The price targets I'm coming up with range from $300 to $1,000. So really I need more data before I'm confident in what my models are saying. The only thing I'm actually really confident in is that Tesla price is going up. I just don't know by how much. I'm also pretty confident that Tesla's always going to run as a quite expensive company. We've seen that historically, but other than that, on the chart, RSI is pretty cool here, so definitely could use a bit of upside. I expect coming in to next month that we'll get above this trend line, start grinding around here, and when the event happens, we're probably going to pop, and the next stop at that is going to be this 240 kind of area, unless we get some front running, which we often do with Tesla, so we could hit those levels way before the actual event. But the MACDX Plus here, looking pretty good. We've got a good level of institutions here. And then retail's in there a little bit. I'd like to see them get washed out, and these moving averages here get pushed out a bit more. Flow is kind of neutral, but it looks like it wants to flip. So definitely Tesla one to watch out for. September could be a rough month. Everyone's talking about it. But the fact that everyone's talking about it is, you could be contrarian and say maybe the market's going to do the other thing and pop. So we shall see. But other than that, we talked about targets, price targets. My trimming, I'm not really trimming on this one. I think this one's really just a hold, accumulate and hold for me. It's pretty unknown. It's a bit of an options play, really. It's going to be hard to come up with an accurate pricing on this, just because we don't know how fast they're going to be able to scale and all that good stuff. You can model out, but it's going to be very generalized and it could be off massively, and I don't really want to do that. So I'm kind of holding off. Let's take a look at the weekly though. Okay, so on the weekly, we can see this kind of flag pattern here a little bit easier. We had the false breakout here and the resistance on the historical level. I don't really like the measured move for this one too much, mainly because there's not a whole lot of confluence here. We had the very weak rejection from this historical high here, which kind of levels out with it. And then other than that, we've got maybe a tiny little bit of volume and the $300 kind of whole number scenario. So really that's the only thing that would draw that up, is just because 300 is a pretty number. Psychologically, I think a lot of investors are going to want to see it push to that level again. So we'll wait and see. I think mainly we're just going to tootle along until the event next month. However, Tesla can often have some front running, so bear that in mind if you're waiting to invest closer to the time. It's probably best to DCA in before that if this is your cup of tea. But other than that, RSI is kind of neutral. MACDX Plus is looking good. We've got over 50% institutions in there. Golden Cross is still good. It looks like it's kind of paused, but retail's washed out, and the flow is kind of flat. So it'd be nice to see a little bit more there. But other than that, the chart looks okay, but I'm thinking this is probably not going to be a chart-driven one with the news and stuff coming out at the moment. So like we talked about earlier when we were looking at the daily chart, this really is going to be coming down to, do you think Tesla is a good option play for 2025 to 2030? If you do, then I would buy in now. If you don't, and you don't think Tesla can do anything they are saying they're going to do, then I probably wouldn't touch this one, as it's very much dependent on what they can accomplish starting next year with their scaling and all the production stuff. I'm very excited to get more data to put into my model so I can actually come up with a more reliable model. I don't like the unknown, but I do think this company is going to nail at least one of their new products, which will be very game changer. My primary bet is on energy. I'm very excited for that, especially in the shorter term, but then we've got the semis coming relatively soon as well, so we shall see. Moving on to the open options interest on this one, we can see the next week's interest is kind of got this really strong level at 215, so that's going to be a real tough level next week to beat. Unless we get some news, we're probably going to stay under that. And there's quite a lot of resistance above here. Not huge, but it's kind of pottering around. We do have this gap fill here at 245. I'm surprised the resistance isn't there, but it's been pushed up to 250, but oh well. So the week after, when it loads, targets moving up a bit, but they're kind of all scattering. It's a bit of a buckshot going on here. So we've got support and resistance at pretty much every $5 kind of area. So that tells me things are going to be choppy. There's going to be a lot of bouncing around. The big daddy level though is 240. So if we manage to get there, that one's going to be really tough to break. I'm just going to have a look at the week after just because I'm curious. Okay, so now obviously we're getting closer to the event, and resistance levels are starting to pick up. So there's a lot more interest in these kind of levels. We've got 230 here, 250 again, and then 300. I wouldn't imagine Tesla's going to be 300. Well, I wouldn't imagine it'll be over 300 this year, but it could touch it. I don't know. Stranger things have happened. It's very volatile. When it moves, it can really shift, as you can see here in this big move here. But I'm going to take a look at the January 2025 ones a few months after that. That's a pretty large expected move. Not to have what I just talked about. So 280 was kind of expected, but 300, a lot of people kind of looking at there. Quite a lot of interest in the downside as well. So it's a bit of a split mix between institutions at the moment. People are either betting it's not going to work or it is going to work. So we shall see. 2026 though, which will be the year after a lot of the new products come to market and start getting pushed and ramped and all that good stuff. 2026. We can see things really start to move in a bullish direction. We still have a lot of the naysayers, a lot of the short-term chop there, but the upside targets are very much lifted. So a lot of people expecting the measured move to be about 350. I think 2025 we could be much higher than that, but it depends. Obviously, we really need more data. I don't want to say too much about that. I don't want to be misleading, and I don't want someone to say, I told you so, later on down the line, because that would be really annoying, especially since I've gone to great effort not to discuss how crazy my price models seem at the moment. But if we pull this down here as well, we'll probably see some more high targets coming in. For some reason, open options don't display very well when I'm running record. They get really laggy. So if you can see that, topside target is about 500 to 510. So it's quite a whopper move, potentially, but for the most part, the market only sees to about 350. Okay, there's been quite a lot of Tesla news out lately, so I'm just going to kind of touch on the key areas here. So Sawyer Merritt, if you don't follow him and you own Tesla, you definitely should do that. He's over on X. Over 15,000 Teslas were insured in China last week. That was pretty impressive. As well as that, though, the Tesla China-made EV sales increased 3% in August compared to the previous year. and the China-made Model 3 and the Y vehicles rose by 17% from July. So I think whatever way you look at it, China-made vehicles are about to absolutely annihilate records. Other than that, though, we've got the Tesla tariffs. I do write a full article on my website at thecraftytrader.com. So if you want to get the more accurate details on there, I'm just going to go quickly over some of the key bits. So the main thing here was that the import tariff was reduced from 20.8%, I believe, to 9% for the China-built cars exported to the EU. So I think a lot of people were mind blown that that's been allowed to happen, since a lot of the other manufacturers had cuts, but I think the biggest one was probably like 1%. It was crazy. The lobbying has been so good. Can't hate that. Secondly, I think to that point, on the flip side, there was news from Canada. A lot of people thought this was bad news. I actually think it's pretty good news, to be fair. They want to implement 100% levy on electric cars from China. Now, that's going to really cripple the actual Chinese manufacturers, but Tesla should be able to just redirect their inventory. It should be able to just come from the Fremont factory instead. So they should be able to avoid most of that. So not world ending for Tesla, but it's pretty damaging to Tesla's competitors, which is in the long run is better for Tesla. On the website as well, there's a few more bits lifted from Hans C. Nelson. He gets real nitty gritty with his Tesla information, so he's worth a follow as well if you're interested in that. The main thing he talks about lately was the Shanghai factory. The Megapack factory is 45% complete, and that is on schedule to complete within 9 to 6 months, which is pretty impressive, bearing in mind they only started building, whatever you call it, about 3 months ago. Very excited. That's the capacity to that should be another 40 gigawatt hours per year, and the rev from that will be about 10 billion. Obviously, that depends on how margins move and all that kind of stuff, but that's what kind of ballpark what we're going to be looking at. And that alone will add a lot to the bottom line for Tesla. And I think the energy is just going to keep scaling and scaling. I'm hoping they're going to announce more factories for that as well. I think those ones will be for overseas as well, so something to bear in mind. Other things he talked about in his post were Tesla energy revenue now exceeded its services and other revenue streams for the first time. I mean, that touches a little bit on what I've just said. I think it's going to be absolute game changer for the balance sheet here. What else was in the news? Trump offered Elon Musk a potential advisor role. I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea. I mean, Elon's got a lot on his plate already, but probably good for the country and the planet in general, to be honest. I think he will have a lot of useful things, and he will definitely be able to streamline the government. So can't really complain. He's pretty damn good at that. The government tax credits could potentially benefit Tesla as well, was something he talked about. But again, if you want more detailed information on that, you can check that out on my website. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's going to make this video super long, and that probably all needs its own video. This is just highlights what's happening, something to be aware of. All of this news is fairly bullish. So the US market was closed today, so there's not any economic data to actually go through today. However, tomorrow we do have the Red Book year over year here. That's been doing pretty well lately, so hopefully it can continue. The S&P Global Manufacturing PMI final is in. We don't know how that's going to go. It's been going down quite consistently lately, but we talk about it all the time. Manufacturing is not the hot spot. It doesn't drive the economy like it used to be, which is part of the reason why that silly Sam's rule thing was a load of rubbish, because it was mainly focusing on manufacturing. So again, here, more manufacturing data, manufacturing employment. I think the market's probably going to be interested in that purely because it's employment data and they're obsessed with it at the minute. Construction spending, that one I would love to see get it higher. I think we really need to see some construction going up, but it might be a bit early still. Again, more manufacturing data. Prices, I think, is probably one of the more interesting points to look at on that one. The economic optimism index, I'd like to see that one be higher than forecast. Obviously, the forecast is higher than previous, so we'll take what we can get on that one. We just want to see some strength just to keep things calm. I think being a typically bearish month in September, people and investors and institutions are going to look for any weakness just to panic. So best to avoid that, I think. What else we got? Yeah, nothing really interesting. Okay, I think that's a wrap. If you found this video useful, give me a like, share with your buddies, and subscribe. Apologies if it felt a little bit rushed. I'm quite constrained for time today. Off to do some yoga. I'm getting a bit stiff in my old age, so it's good to keep on top of that. And I will see you tomorrow.